going to share my screen first of all, and then we go into our beautiful, amazing, incredible, spectacular Padlet. So, guys, let me just recap a little bit what we have to do. So I'm supposed to talk for 2 hours, so you can shoot at me when you're bored, when you're sleeping. If you need a coffee, just stop me. We are just few, so we can be a little bit more direct and informal. Omar, if you have your camera, you might try to turn it on, and so just we can have the chance to look at each other.
Just 1 minute.
Yeah, please take your time. So how was the first 2 weeks, guys? What can you tell me? Is there anything that you would like to share with us, to tell us?
I think everything is good. It's going well. For me, there is nothing.
Okay. But no one of you has ever contacted us for coaching, for, I mean, refreshing something which has been discussed during the session? No one of you, just one did. We were kind of expecting more people, but apparently you are fine with it. Okay. Okay, guys.
Jojo, I think the reason behind that was that the time of this Zach planning session is very critical. You know, this time of SCHF location, so everybody is busy with this thing. So we were not able to ask for coaching in the evening, etc. That's why. Otherwise, we would have requested plenty of times to be coached by you.
Okay, but what you can do, you can put them on paper, to write an email and send it to us. And actually, if you just, this is out of the record, but if you need anything else, I mean, even if when this training is going to be over, just drop me an email. And if I can, I will be happy to support if I can anyhow. So just do it. So, and also, I mean, theoretically speaking, this project, I mean, this training, I mean, it has a deadline, which is basically this week. And so after this week, we won't be paid. But, I mean, the program itself is going to last for more months. So somehow we are kind of around. So take this chance. Okay.
And don't forget that, Giorgio, you are not going to be active, but me and David, we are still there for 5 months more. So in case they cannot contact us.
Lucky you guys. We won't leave you. Okay, basically what we are going to do today is, and so we will talk about, we will refresh just a little bit what we have done the previous 2 weeks, which were kind of technically focused. And we're going to have a look at the framework of planning, the environment settings, the infrastructures, but just a little bit. But for me, what is important is still applying a process in site planning. And in this process, you have to put anything you might need for making a proper site planning. And then we will, again, I'm sorry to insist, but we will again look at the context analysis, and but briefly, and with some kind of suggestions. Okie dokie. So you should be able to see the slides now.
Yes, I see it.
Okay. Is it big enough? Can you see the screen clearly?
For me, it's okay.
It's enough, yeah.
Okay. So basically today, so planning framework. For me, it's important to understand that you have an insight on the complexity behind site planning, which is, again, I repeat, it's not just an engineering exercise. Because keep in mind that any engineering exercise is easy as such, because it's a technical issue. But I'm admitting somebody else, but site planning is more. Okay. And now, do you remember when we asked what is the difference between shelter and settlement? You put some comments, not all of you, but some of you has put some comments, and you have shared shared your opinion about this. My question is, do you still have the same opinion? Do you still have the same vision you had the beginning of the previous 2 weeks? Or you might think that site planning is something kind of a little bit more complex and bigger. Any thought?
Yeah, for me, as you said, it's a little bit more complicated than how I was imagining, or how I was thinking, because there's a lot of things we have to look at, and we have to stop at, and we have to find a solution for. It's a little bit more complicated.
Okay, got it. For you guys, Khaled.
Yes, as we said and in the beginning, it's a huge difference between them because one is building the other. Let's say from from shelter you can build this this site, which is
You went mute.
okay. I meant, as we said in the beginning, the difference between shelter and the settlement. The settlement is consisting of plenty of shelters, and shelters reflects that just something for providing dignified living conditions in emergency situations, etc. But for settlement, it's a bigger, let's say, a bigger subject, for not just for as a response for the living condition, for the as a response for the emergency situation, but for to build for sustainability or for sustainable conditions in the future. So it's a big difference between them, but one is building the other, let's say.
Okay. No, well done, Khaled. I think you raised 2 points which for me are important. If I recall well, you have spoken about dignity, and this is a concept that we'll briefly talk again during this presentation. And also you have spoken about sustainability, if I'm not mistaken. Also, this one is a very important element that we should be able to take in consideration. Say hello to your friend on the telephone. Okay. Mohammed, you have anything to say? You are mute. You are mute.
From my work, I understand the both of settlement and shelter is for new IDPs, new coming IDPs. But for shelter, there is limited families for shelter, collective shelter or individual shelter. For settlement, there is no limited or more than 200 or 300 families. We can say that lifetime for settlement more than the shelter, collective shelter or the individual shelter. That's all for me.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Well, let's not be too complicated, but I just want to report a definition this definition has been drafted by UNHCR, and I think give a comprehensive insight about the two aspects of shelter and settlement, because settlement refers to the context, which is the space in which households exist and how one shelter relates to another. In structural terms, a settlement is to a community what a shelter is to a household or a family. Settlements shape how households relate to one another to form communities, and therefore must respond to needs and aspirations of communities, including the specific and different needs of individuals within this community. with regard to safety, which is probably the most important component, security, access to services, economic opportunity, and sociocultural life. So those are big words, but just to extrapolate three on the some of the what to me in terms of site planning are very important is the context, relations, and aspirations, because at the end we have clients that we have to respond to. So if designing a settlement is such a meaningful task, I will say consequently the site planning should be a team effort. And I have already insisted on this part. It's a really team effort. It requires a multidisciplinary approach from surveying. Please?
May I interrupt you?
Yeah, please.
I have a quick meeting, so I have to leave. Hopefully, I will be able to come back in 15 minutes. Okay?
Okay.
It's a very urgent meeting. So.
Okay, no problem. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. So this is to say that, I mean, it requires a multidisciplinary approach from surveying and design into camp management. Okay, don't think that your design will not affect camp management. We have seen the last week few examples how you will design might affect or influence camp management. We were referring, for example, to the dimension of the roads, how many vehicles can pass on a certain roads, internal roads. So all these elements concur to design your settlement. So what we have learned so far as a site planners, we should remember, be concerned with the rules, and we have seen it, this one, and this is standards, guidelines, regulation, whatever. And we have had a session about the rules, particularly on the structure of the emergency settlement itself, talking about the family plot, the community, the blocking, and so out. I hope you should be able to remember. And then we have talking about the fact that to be smart, which is concerned with the context and the resources, the opportunities that you might encounter during your site planning process, which is very important. If you comply just with rules and standards, your settlement probably, it will just work. But nothing more. But we have to be smart, and smart is by understanding. And then we have seen a very important component, which is human, because at the end, we design for these people in need. And we have seen together that most of the residents during daytime are children, women, or aged people. And this is something very, very important in taking into consideration. The last week, we have spoken about rules and standards. We will talk about it quickly, but in a different kind of shape. So this is come to the rules to setting up an emergency settlement. As you basically can see here on these slides, you have a scheme about the time frame of the setting up of your settlement. Okay, so basically you have to locate the site, which is the very first step you have to do, and with an hypothesis of your counterpart agency, that might be the government, might be UNHCR, might be an international NGOs or a local NGOs. And then as soon you have identified the site, you start the planning, layout, and all the aspects related to the design and the setting up of the camp. What is important for me that among this list, it is indicated site drainage. Myself and Andrea, we have insisted so much that you have to design a drainage system in a very detailed and careful manner. This is very important, very fundamental, because most of the problems in any emergency settlements come from improper drainage designs and construction. Keep in mind this one. With Andrea, we have seen how to use certain tools to better design drainage system. We have used Global Mapper, but you can use any other software. That's not an issue. But you need to comprehend the situation on the ground from a water perspective and to design your drainage system accordingly. Another element, which is, to me, it's very important, that sooner or later you will have people arriving. And probably we have discussed that you will have people arriving while you are still building, sometimes while you are still designing your camp. So this has to be taken into consideration. And if you recall, we have discussed, yep, we have to unmute now. We have discussed how to cope with this issue. Do you remember something? Just say yes, no, yes, no, perhaps. Okay.
Yes, no, perhaps.
Okay, excellent, guys. Then water supply, of course, it's an important component, definitely a super important component. And then you have to take in consideration. I just would like to make you. Oh, sorry, sometimes my English goes away. Anyway, just want you notice the fact that here that water supply is placed not necessarily at the very beginning of your design process and implementation process. But the reason is because the water supply system is a very sophisticated system, even if we have very few means. Okay, so it takes time because you have to assess the situation. You have to work in synergy with the site planner. So basically, the water system as well as the drainage has to be designed properly and then implemented over the time. And then another important element is which is definitely roads, because roads will define basically the shape of your settlement. I mean, because you might have the.
George, sorry, can I intervene?
Yes, please.
Here, what I miss, okay, permanent or semi-permanent water supply, I fully agree with you that it takes time to store it properly. But emergency water supply should be there before people arrive, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's not in question. As you can see from this scheme, where the people are expected to arrive, I mean, they might expect to arrive more or less at the end of the third week, more or less. You must have already a water supply system in place. I was referring to, of course, you have to design it, but you have to design it properly. But definitely, yeah, it's good that you have underlined this.
Giorgio, there is a note on the chat. You don't see it. A question from Khalil. Drainage system different of sewage system. What type of drainage system can we can implement in Syria? If there is a session, how to design? I mean, go through section.
Okay, let me see if I have understood. I mean, yes, I mean, to design a proper drainage system, I mean, I cannot say specifically anything to the Syria situation, at least for the Egypt region, but definitely the drainage system, it should be a course itself. There should be a training which is focused on side drainage. And definitely you should split the drainage system, which is related to storm water mostly, or gray waters, from the sewage system, which is just focused on black waters and black water treatment. And in fact, this goes to the questions of course, this list is not complete. There is something else that we might take into consideration. But just to complete my answer to the question, yes, split the drainage system. So black waters from storm water, that's definitely important. As I said, in some cases, it's easier to have the gray water system, which is basically the same with the stormwater system. This makes stuff easier, but it shouldn't be done like that, because the type of pollution that you have for the gray water is different from the type of pollution they have from the black water and for the stormwater. So ideally, you should have 3 systems, but this is very often it's not possible. So what else? Do you have anything in mind that should be put on this list, guys?
I missed totally sanitation there.
Yeah, definitely. Anyone else, guys? You want to say something? I mean, it's not a test, just to come up with if you think there's anything that you might include. Yeah, sanitation for sure. I'll go ahead.
Yeah,
for example. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just looking about Fire safety. I can read what you posted. Fire safety. Okay, I just want to mention about the facilities for like administration, warehouse, distribution point. Some places should be there, even for uh, child-friendly spaces. Also, yeah, I think it should be designed and would have space. Uh, Maybe you are talking about just here infrastructure, water supply, medical, but I think some like these facilities should be considered related to the space, access. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yes, that's for sure. That's definitely a good point. All these, are including what should be the plan layout where you put all this kind of infrastructure. But sometimes, particularly when you have daily major influx, it's very good to have them in this kind of plan, so you know when you have to have certain infrastructure ready before others. And then I add here, for example, fire safety, which is the plan and the setting up of the system. Please don't forget to take into consideration to your design the lighting system, because this is very important. At least if you cannot provide light for the whole settlement, you might decide to provide light for certain specific points, because as you know, lighting is very much related to protection. And of course, the water treatment, as Andrea was mentioning, definitely, which is not included in this list. This also depends on the level of sophistication of your settlement. Bear in mind that emergency settlements are very polluting. They produce a lot of waste and pollution. Because of the waste, because of the black water, there is lack of treatment. So generally speaking, human settlement as such, my particular emergency settlement, they are an entity that produce a lot of pollution. Think about it. There is another aspect which is very seldom is mentioned, which is the community involvement. So, because the community might be one of your best resources. So, because you have people inside the settlement, you have people with skills, you have people with capabilities, and most likely you're going to have people that are willing to do something. They don't want to stay there doing nothing. Probably the males will have to go outside during daytime for income generation activity if they can, but it's the community itself that it really represents resources. And this is an additional chapter, particular for those that were not technical, that really can take care of this aspect. And then there is a question, when can we start involving these dwellers? Ideally during the designing phase, if we can. Sometimes we can. I have experience where the people, while we were designing the camp, have been included because in the design process, so to better understand their needs in terms of family plot, what they might need. Of course, you cannot give anything they ask for, but at least you can work in synergy. This is very important. And ideally, the involvement with the community should start from day one, if it's possible, obviously. Okay, any other question?
There is like another type of community involvement, which is the modality, what we call it, cash for work. We can hire workers from the community itself to help us in the other sectors, which is not ready yet, for example.
Omar, this is definitely a good point. I totally agree with you. Very often with IDPs is doable, this approach. Other times with refugees, unfortunately, it's not, just to you to be aware, it's not possible to pay the refugees. Very often local authorities, national government do not allow the international organization, national organization to give money to refugees. They prefer the money goes into the hosting community. So you have the hosting community, which is working the settlement because it's not possible to pay directly the refugees. But that's definitely a very, very good point, Omar. Thank you so much.
And Giorgio, yes, I think
please.
Also, we should start from the very beginning as well to consider the host community, like you were saying, to include them somehow so that there is no friction between IDP or refugee and host community.
Absolutely. This is a very, very, absolutely very good point. Yeah. Thank you, Andrea.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize what George said. We have a real example here in Syria now. We are implementing a new camp. So the beneficiary were involved from the beginning by focus group discussion and everything documented. And they selected the type of shelter they want. Then they go with the cement shelter instead of tent shelter, and we took their opinion in our consideration, and we reached to the donor and changed the type from tent to the cement walls, taking in our consideration the HLB issues and the ownership for the land. So we went for we went with them as they want. Then they involved with the design of the cement shelter. They changed the door, they changed the room, and we shared with the shelter cluster as well. Then they asked us to not do septic tanks if there is possibility to link the latrines and the path with the sewer line and link it or connect it with the nearest manhole for the nearest community. So we are doing that now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Khalil. No, that's definitely important contribution. Absolutely, I totally I agree. I totally understand this process. Very, very useful. And then just a reflection on construction cost. Two points. Construction costs are part of the design process. You might have a schematic drawings, and I say no, please, because I expect you produce excellent mapping and design, but you can't avoid having detailed bill of quantities. Okay, bill of quantities are the precise telling of the settlement. They describe in detail technical solution, how a construction must be done, and resolve controversy with contractors. I'm pretty sure, maybe tell me whether I'm wrong, that you might start the construction works with a contractor just if you have good bill of quantities, because that's the base of negotiation. Very often contractors, but this is a mistake, they overcome the fact that the drawings are not that detailed, but they insist on having precise bill of quantity. Do you agree with these guys?
Yeah, bill of quantity, BOQs, it is the main component or item, yeah, in our works.
Okay, no, that's very, very important. By the way, I have not included something which might be interesting. In my experience in building certain type of settlements, and I will show you one later. For the deal with the contractor, we use three main type of documents. One was the drawing, and one was the bill of quantities. And for every line of bill of quantities, there were the technical specification, which was an additional description of the works to be done, so that there was no possible misunderstanding. So, of course, producing all these three documents properly takes a little bit of time. If you might afford to have this time, go for it, because bill of quantities, you know, absolutely very important, very, very important. Okay. About maintenance costs and settlement maintenance plan. This is something that we also might think about it, because it's definitely very, very important element of your design planning. So how you think we can calculate maintenance costs? When you have done the design of an emergency settlement, do you think it's important to come out with the idea how much the settlement is going to cost over the weeks, over the months? Any idea, guys? What do you think?
Yeah, I know this is based on the type of the infrastructure implemented in the site, based on the type. For example, if we have a drainage system inside the camp, this drainage system like open channels, and then you will expect there is a sedimentation will be fill these channels, and you can determine from which time to time you need to clean these channels. Then you can hire laborers, maybe in weekly or in based on the frequency, and do this maintenance for these channels. The other side, maybe the camps not compacted well. So the graveling not well implemented. So you will expect some of swamps after the rain season. So you need to do like a graveling again and fix these poles or these swamps. You need to fix it. It's depend based on the type of the infrastructure inside the camp, um, and how the quality is implemented. Then you can estimate what type of maintenance it's needed and the frequency for the maintenance, and allocate the cost for that if it is available. Yeah.
Well done, Khalil. Excellent. Excellent. Very well done. Uh, Anyone else want to add something? Nope, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, to complement what Khalil just said, first of all, we need to identify the sentiment potential weak points, which are the places, the location, the area, the points where most likely maintenance issue will rise. Khalil, you made an excellent list of possible maintenance costs. That's absolutely important. Khalil, you already made some samples. That's definitely for me is absolutely fine. And I don't have any other particular samples to quote, but one of the major maintenance costs in any emergency settlement very often is related to erosion. And I'm not talking about erosion from a geological perspective, but from, I mean, a set of minor erosion elements. For example, the steps, the edge of the communities, the roads, all these elements that over the time get ruined by use. So erosion is definitely an element that we have to take in consideration. And then we go to the other question, which we already discussed a little bit. Can we involve the community by carrying out settlement self-maintenance activities? Yeah, I mean, without going into much details, I think we can. Probably we can more easily with the IDPs, with more difficulties with refugees, because again, with refugees, you might do that, but if you are forced by the government of not paying the refugees to do that activity, you have to find a different leverage to, I mean, to involve them to make this maintenance. Because one of the main issues that we have in any emergency settlement is money. So we cannot always and often pay the people. Khalil, you wanted to say
Yeah.
something?
Yeah, I just want to add a lot of examples. Like, you know,
Please.
I think that the main things need for maintenance or regular maintenance now, it is the sanitation part. Look, latrines, the communal latrines. So I just need to go back and emphasize about the community level inside the camps to take care about their facilities. If we increase the ownership for these facilities by dividing them to the communities, and each community will have their latrines, they have water distribution point, they have garbage bins, so they will take care about it, because now we are spending a lot of money as operation cost to clean the latrines, to fix the doors, the windows, and even we have a lot of missed item. It is stolen, you know. Yeah, so it is a lot of problem. And I want to emphasize about the sewage system is very important. When we design any camp, we need to ask ourselves where we will drive the water, the wastewater, or the drain water. We need to care about the close communities. If there is any opportunity to link or connect this sewer system with the nearest community without do any harm to the capacity of the sewage system for the nearest community, we need to go with this solution. Septic tanks not covered well. Now there is a plastic sheet. They are covering the septic tank with the plastic sheet, and we faced incident in Azaz area when a child dropped down the septic tank and he died. So it's still a problem. Still, the NGOs working in the cabs need to be report about that if they don't have the capacity to fix it. For some dangerous and serious issues in the camps, they don't need to wait. If they don't have the capacity, they need to report directly.
Yeah, Khalil, again, you have raised excellent points. I think just to complement on what you said, I think that community involvement is fundamentals. I mean, unfortunately or fortunately, very much of the of the settlement, everyday life relies on the dwellers directly. It's up to them the way that they treat their own living spaces, and this is somehow is linked with their kind of expectation, where they're thinking to stay there for just for a limited amount of time, or maybe if they think that they might stay for longer, maybe they start thinking that probably they should take care of these places as it was their own village. So these are definitely consideration that should be taken consideration, that has to be factoring in the process of site planning. Those are not precisely technical, but I mean our technical solution, like for example, I don't. Of course, it was not conscious, but I guess that for some reason there was something wrong when this septic tank was an open sky septic tank. Maybe it was not completed, maybe it was just a phase. But I mean, the way we work sometimes concern even the safety of the dwellers. Even to me personally, it happened that there was a suspect that the child, very small child, I mean, fell into in a septic tank in a refugee camps, and because sorry guys, okay, okay, sorry guys. So even to me happened that we had once the suspect that the guy fell into the septic tank, but in just the hole on the latrine. So because someone heard, so we had to. I'm sorry guys, sorry, just a second. Pronto? No, mamma, sto facendo il corso, scusami. Tutto bene, grazie, scusami, ti richiamo. Ciao ciao. I apologize, guys. I had to respond. So definitely, yes. So and don't all these consideration come to the thinking that if is the settlement suitable in a longer term perspective? Does it favor resilience? And as such, can we do something about that in our design? I think somehow we can do that. And this is not just a technical process. Again, of course, we have to do our work. We have to carry out any possible construction in the best possible manner, considering the resources that we have. But the issue sometimes is also a little bit beyond our control. I think I can carry on, and soon we might have a break. And then we go to what we have said to be smart, a sort of smart planning, which is very much related with the comprehensive understanding of the context in terms of opportunities and constraints. This is just a sample of the site planning which has been done, basically taking consideration a very detailed kind of analysis of the context. First of all, we had the chance to do it. I would like to show you something, by the way, which is this one. I don't know whether you see the photos. So when we have designed this settlement, we have downloaded the best possible ever satellite imagery. Can you see it?
Yes, I can see.
Okay. As you can see, it is very, I mean, we took a little bit of time to download all this picture. Also it was a sort of patchwork, but it was very useful because we had a very good insight of what was going on. Okay. As I said during one previous session, sometimes happen that the satellite imagery that you might find in internet of some war zones or area of crisis are kind of very much detailed. So for example, here we knew that already there were, you can see all these streams. Sorry, if I may. For example, here in particular, all these streams, we have seen here there was an area full of digging and a dump site. for example, over here, then we discovered there was a mass graveyard, so was kind of, and for example, this is the path of an existing railway which was completely dismantled because of the war and previous of these events. But I mean, this is definitely very important. I go back to our slide. And then again, to design the settlement kind of accordingly, we made a kind of a quick analysis. It is not rocket science. It takes just maybe 1 hour through this satellite imagery, because even we didn't have the chance to make a very detailed survey on the ground, because, for example, in this case, the settlement was kind of close to the Mosul, where there were still war operation ongoing. So we had to rely very much on satellite data. So we have done a very kind of simple, as you can see, it's not that complicated analysis, just studying what was there. I mean, the existing villages, some resources, some existing paths, some islands on the ground, and eventually. By the way, this is to say, don't rush planning. Take a bit of time to think about it. Okay, we had this time. Using these tools can give you time, and so we have done the design accordingly. Because basically, and then we eventually came out with this design that, as you can see, it is a very emergency settlement, but still taking consideration the elements that we have identified by analyzing the data. Of course, here I didn't put all the surrounding, but it was important to focus over here on this settlement. Any question, guys?
No.
Okay, okie dokie. So basically, if we got the survey, so we cannot make a confusion between geometrical survey and context analysis. The geometrical survey, which is the topographical survey, should be as precise and detailed as possible. It is the grounding for technical design. During the first week, if I recall properly, we have matched a survey made with the total station, the contour lines, with the one made with the satellite imagery. And we have seen that basically they matched quite well, which basically means that we cannot just rely on satellite imagery, but we have to commit ourselves to have a better topographical survey. Otherwise, there is no point to do that. If I have to a drainage system, which is one of the vital elements of my settlement, we have to go for very detailed survey. And then there is the context analysis that aims to identify the opportunities and constraints. It can be facilitated by using GIS, that's for sure, and we have seen it, but because you produce documents that can be shared with your concerned colleagues and discussed also in the perspective of settlement management and about the settlement future. I mean, the context analysis really help you to give a perspective that you can look at, and this is kind of important.
Can I intervene?
Yes, please.
About the context analysis, it's also very important to make analysis on the ground. Asking the people looking about economical opportunities on the ground, not only on GIS. So both are very important.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Okay. Yep. Shall I carry on?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And then we have opportunities. We have opportunities. Maybe can you list, for example, and which kind of opportunities or resources, if you like, if you prefer, we can encounter when we do a site analysis, which is a comprehensive analysis. I was just quoting one. Can you quote others? For example, existing permanent or seasonal streams, we have shown you how this can be incorporated in the design of your settlement and become and act as an existing and working natural drainage system. If you recall, I show you some photos, some drawings, which we show you that we have placed water points next to these streams so that to avoid the need to make additional infrastructures. Can you quote different kind of opportunities more about these guys? Yeah, just shoot. Just put on the table.
I will start from my side. Maybe we can take advantage from the topography. I think it is related to what you mentioned, but even if we have less dimension, and so less leveling, less graveling, and if there is not like a lot of holes, and you got my point about the,
Absolutely, yes,
yeah, to
yes,
how to
yes.
prepare the site. It is if you have a very slope, like it will cost you related to the graveling and site preparation, and even so always try to select a suitable land. And I know it is related to many factors, HLB issues like this. And I think if you can get a benefit from the nearest community and the infrastructures they have, and like for example, uh, you have solid waste, you have wastewater, a lot of component will be a result from the beneficiary living in the camps. So how you can manage this, you will reduce or decrease the cost of maintenance, decrease of the cost of transferring the solid waste out of the camp to the landfill. If you can get benefit from the even instead of construct many septic tanks and maybe do harm for the ground, or put yourself in the dangerous situation, you can get benefit from the infrastructures. And even at the markets, existed roads, you can invest in them. Yeah, this is a general come in my mind.
Well done. Absolutely pertinent. Absolutely very good, Khalil. Anyone else? Guys, come on, speak up. Anything else that can be considered as an opportunity?
Yalla, Omar from Care.
Yes.
Go ahead, Omar. I will tell Jude about you. Go ahead.
Sorry, what was your question?
Now the question was, I'm glad you're back. And the question was if you can name some opportunities or resources that you might identify in the process of site planning in the initial phases.
يعني maybe the type of the soil you are going to establish your camp on, and yeah, this might be an opportunity, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make me think about it in a different perspective, because I have always considered the type of soil a sort of constraints, but somehow you're right, because you might see where it might be easier to dig, I don't know, a cesspool or a septic tank rather than erecting communal facilities on the more rocky and solid area. Yeah, sure, good point.
And water resources, maybe can be an opportunity if there is an exist water resources, and exist like a main sewer system in the area.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else? Shall I carry on? I carry on because you are tired. So, opportunities, existing roads, paths, and buildings. You have to incorporate them in your design, so you don't have to overlie to and hide what there is on the ground. Roads and paths, which are already there, very useful, and they will help you to shape your settlements. No one is naming the trees, the environment, guys. If you have any trees in your settlement, keep it, save it, design around the trees. And don't cut any trees in your settlement. Those are very important, even for the well-being of the people, for the welfare of the dwellers. And then, of course, as somebody mentioned, in highest and low points, nearby cities, infrastructures, social inclusion. So, as we discussed before, the involvement of the community is still an opportunity. space and infrastructure that can be shared with the hosting environment, and what else? So we can I already asked you, but we can go ahead. We really can go ahead with the opportunities on the ground. And then it goes to constraints. And since we are a little bit late, I will run a little bit ahead. And definitely, some of them are just some example, but not necessarily all of them, which is a flood prone areas. We have to be able to identify erosion, either be micro erosion or kind of geological related erosion, natural hazard. And the main constraints to me is money. How much money do we have to build up the settlements? So this is definitely the biggest constraint.
Yeah,
So
I can add something else.
yeah, please.
I think the technical expert now it is a constraint because the bad design and the unsuitable design or unsuitable site to implement your camp, it will restricted you because you will lost a lot of money and you will do a harm.
Yeah, Khalil, well done. No, I totally agree with you. This I should add these points into the slide. Yeah, definitely, definitely, very good point. Anyone else, guys?
Me, but I have a small idea or a smaller question about the money. I don't know if it is related to the money. For example, if I established a new camp and I get fund, for example, for 1 year or 2 years, okay, then when after 2 years is finished, from where I can get a new fund if I don't get it before? Should I do EGA's livelihood project or what I should do for the IDBs? Because of course I can't leave it the IDBs without fund for after 2 years or 3 years. Should I have a plan for future for them?
Mohammed, this is a very important question, and I mean, it should be properly responded in a different kind of training because those goes a little bit behind the fact of site planning, but not completely, because by doing a proper site planning, you give the what resilience to the people. I mean, the well-being of the people in your settlement is fundamental to trigger resilience, which is the main resources that every dwellers in need have to carry on. Uh, Definitely, when there are these programs, according to the camps, with international donors, you might consider there are three phases. The one which is the emergency phases, which is related to the design and the setting up, and then there is a process which is called more is before consolidation, where the settlements try to interact with the surrounding. And so when the very emergency phase is over, that the people are here, there is the phase at which brings to the consolidation phases. And as such, normally you might find, or your organization might find opportunities of funding through organization who are more related with development or post-emergency process. So for example, for the setting up of refugee camps in the initial phase, you will deal most likely with UNHCR. He's going to be your main donor. And then you have other organizations stepping in a later phase, like, for example, it could be UNICEF, not necessarily. UNICEF is always on board for water and sanitation, but definitely UNDP. UNDP is the biggest organization. And where they operate as an organization, you can build up a project which aims to trigger resilience and sustainability in your settlement, and as such demands for more funds and money. Yeah, it's definitely a good point. Definitely a good point. It's another very big chapter, which comes a little bit after this stage.
Can I just say something?
Yeah, please.
So I think when you're always designing something, I work more in international development than humanitarian, but long-term projects and sustainability and resilience is at the core. And I think even when you're designing, you should be looking at long-term prospects and what's likely to happen. And it may not happen, but there's also a big question about the question isn't always where do we get the money from. It's about how can we build a sustainable community and a sustainable environment, and what are the resources to do that. And money is only one resource. So you have, you know, there's human resources as well. There's many resources that you build on. So in your planning, you're not just looking at money as a resource. You're looking at a range of resources, and we have to be very aware of, when you get into the latter phase, when you get out of the emergency and humanitarian phase, that you get into long-term community building phases, and the idea of sustainability takes over. And while you will get some initial funding, the idea is for self-sustainability, and not to become aid dependent as well. So we want to promote local economies and that kind of thing as well. So I think I think it's really important to think more broadly than just in terms of funding and money as the resources.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That's why I didn't put money into opportunities, but into constraints, while there is social inclusion, which is for me social participation and building up sustainability, resilience. That's fundamental. A specific training, again, should be organized on this, because it's an essential element. I mean, as a site planners, we give the bricks to be the house, but then the house has to be built by the system, which is made by the people, which is a social system, is an economic system. In fact, yeah, please.
Nadjo, there is a note on the chat from Khalil. He writes, please add the HLP in the constraint, the HLP issue to the constraint. You will find suitable land for your camp, but there is an HLP issue on the complex context.
Yeah, I agree with you, Khalil. That's definitely a good point. There was supposed to be a specific session on HLP, but unfortunately there is not going to be a session on HLP. But definitely this is something that we have to take into consideration. HLP, it's an issue which takes. I mean, it has to be taken in consideration from the day one, because if you seek a land, you need to be sure that you have the legal
That's correct now, especially for Syria context, because I personally I faced 3 issues. I forced to change 3 sites related to the HLB issues, and my project delayed about 1 month just seeking for legal documents for the lands that I going. So it is a real issue in Syria now, because you know there is now formal government control that area, and all the documents, it's like you see it like missed, or it is a conflict now in Idlib and in Azaz. So it is a serious issue. We can say, if you want to start to implement any camp, the first question will be documents, HLB, and there is a verification tool issued by IOM and CCM and UNHCR about verification. And yeah,
no, very important, Khalil. I totally understand. Well, just to conclude a little bit this slide, I mean, this part, I will say that this is at least according to my personal experience, but I think that this is kind of appropriate for every single context, that we learned that the opportunities are bigger, at least in numbers, than constraints, fortunately. It's really up to us how to use these opportunities. And even as a site planners, we have to take in consideration the social component. This is definitely fundamental. If we don't think who are we designing for, we will not go basically anywhere. Just let me see. I think we can keep this one for later, and we can have a break of 6 minutes. We come back at 10 past 11. How does that sound? Mohammed and Khaled,
I start recording again.
Okay, can I start again? Are we all here? Okay. So then finally it comes to design, and we have a big dilemma, which is a grid against mesh. So basically we have discussed why we more or less we are tempted to design more having grid as a guiding method rather than mesh. Here you see a grid-based blocks with mixed-use zones, and on the right side you see mesh-based blocks with shared zones. Basically, normally when we design the settlements, we are tempted to use this orthogonal way of making these grids and roads, and to design the communities accordingly. This is just a conceptual layout. Why on the right side you see that, I mean, this kind of designing, for example, we might use the main access road as a fire break, for example, and then we have the block access, and then we have the community access, which are kind of semi-private spaces. So basically, I would say one is more kind of functional, while the other one is a kind of more organic. But that's important to know that they have their own logic. Okay, it is up to the sign planner to make a choice based on operational necessities and the context analysis. So this is to say that one is not better than the other one, even if personally I prefer when we can apply a model which somehow, I mean, adapt itself to the context and what we have identified during our analysis. Otherwise, the camps will look the same as one another, and I don't know whether that is completely positive.
Giorgio, can I intervene?
Yeah, please.
Don't forget that we can also have a mix between grid and mesh. We can have a mesh considering the existing, let's say, roads and geological situation, and within big area you can have a grid. So it's a mix between the two.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any other comments, guys? In that case, I will carry on. And in fact, Andrea, there is a workable hybrid solution, which is organize a green-based blocks design within a larger mesh-based layout, which is basically this one. This is just to compare two different kind of approach. The one on the left is a strict grid. It doesn't take that much in consideration a part of a river, which is a natural border that you cannot, of course, pass. But anyway, this is the way it's planning. It's a kind of, it's easier to plan, it's easier to calculate, and easier to construct. But then we might adopt a kind of hybrid solution in which, as you can see, we are still having a grid structure, but a smaller scale, while the bigger scale is kind of meshed based. In this way, the grid facilitates the construction, for example, block by block or sector by sector, and mesh to encourage physical and social bonds within the context. I'm pretty much sure and confident that this kind of approach, I mean, incorporating element on the ground and linking the settlement with the surrounding can favor much more resilience probably than this one. And I mean, as a spatial perspective. And so the only element basically that we have uncertainty in our project is time. Okay, we do not know how long our settlement we have to last. Is there anything that we can do about that? Any idea, guys? Any thought? Anything? No problem. You have spoken too much today. I believe that designing in synergy with the context to improve the chances for resilience and future development. And this goes back on what Joanne was saying, that we have to rely on the capacity of the community, of the resilience capacity of the community. That's the best option that they have. If we can enable them to carry on their own activity, to become self-sufficient, independent as much as possible, stop relying on helps, direct helps like money or whatsoever, that's the best achievement. And if our design can favor this one, that's the main goal. We can say we have done the best design ever possible considering the context. Then I just want to quote you a sample with an emergency settlement which has been kind of designed having the context in mind. So I will not go too much in details. I will not go too much in details for some reason, but anyway, just to give you an insight, as you can hear, this is an emergency settlement. This is an IDP camp. And taking consideration some very kind of simple and basic elements on the ground. So you do it by incorporating the natural streams. And again, you can take the chance to compare the one which have been simulated by the software, which the one that are actually on ground, that you can see them precisely from satellite imagery, because here there are no trees, so you can have a good view of the ground. And then, I mean, even by designing the spaces for services, those have not been created, I mean, randomly, just putting them on the table. But there was the idea to have a centralized space and another that somehow interconnect with the surrounding in the perspective that might be an expansion of the camp on this side, and also take in consideration some elements of some existing path that you see here, green colors. As you can see, some of them have not been incorporated into the design. This is to say that you don't have to become paranoid that you have to include anything. It's always up to you to balance which of them it's important to incorporate and which of them can be ignored. But there must be a conscious brainstorming before taking this decision, okay? And if we look at this settlement from a wider perspective, when we design this settlement, we try to apply what is called the master plan approach, which is a discussion ongoing within UNHCR right now. If you look at the settlement, this is the one which has been designed, but the position was kind of peculiar, as you can see. For example, because here we have close one fairly big village over here, another one over here, and the third village over here. These two villages basically are very close to one main road which communicates with two important cities. This is Iraq specifically, and also on this side here we have the Tigris River, and as such, which is represent a great opportunity in terms of income generation activity, because there are a lot of seasonal workers occupied in agriculture. So it's very fertile area, very green area. So with potentials, as you can see here, there are already some natural streams that they get into the Tigris. They have the path that goes into the Tigris. And there are also some existing pathways with the people living over here are using to walk from one village to the other one. So the settlement, when it was designed and realized was precisely in the middle of this system, and this is just a scheme to represent this system. So we tried, I mean, at least as much as possible, considering the emergency, we had a very major influx of IDPs coming from a very close city. So it's always as a balance. So we try to design the settlement having a kind of approach also in terms of long perspective to enable them, I mean, to trigger a relation with the surrounding in the best possible manner. You have any comment on this? Anything you would like to say about this kind of master plan approach, of which I'm giving just a quick look at it, because it's another issue that will deserve a specific training on this one. As you can see, we are opening many branches, many topics which are equally interesting and worth to understand better and better. If there is anything else, I would carry on. So I would. And here it comes to the settlement, how it looks now. So despite all the context analysis and thoughtful design, the settlement was eventually dismantled by the authorities, which is eventually is a good thing. I mean, if the people can go back to live in their areas of origin, this is the best option for anyone. So as you can see, you can put all the efforts possible to design a settlement which is kind of the best possible compromise, I will say, considering the emergency. But in this specific case, the settlement itself was dismantled. I just would like you notice, for example, this is the settlement which was designed by me, by us, by my team, and which take in consideration some elements, as you see here, the grids, here the existing path. I might show you a better picture, which is this one. What I can do, we are already 100%. Perhaps I can include a little bit to 100. I don't know. Can you see it properly, guys?
Yes, for me.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's okay. As you can see, the camp has been dismantled. This is thanks to Yandex that provide very nice and updated satellite imagery. But as you can see, very basic elements. You see all the existing paths which has been taken into consideration during the design of the settlement. Even this road, there was already some elements on the ground that were suggesting us where to place our emergency settlement. You can compare with the one made by the, sorry to say, the local authorities, which was eventually, as a camp management, incorporated into the bigger camp. But I recall precisely that the camp management for this part of the settlement, which is, I mean, clearly overcrowded, clearly not enough, not adequately organized, camp management over here was a real issue. Okay. For example, as you can see, this is an existing entrance road. There is a roundabout. This was supposed to be a development, a real estate development settlement. So we have designed our camp that in future, this one might have become a boulevard, an open kind of open boulevard with trees and squares and roundabouts. So there was all this kind of brainstorming. Unfortunately, but fortunately, the settlement was decided to be dismantled. So all this study was basically useless. But it's always good to try. Then I go back here. Is it clear? Do you have any question about this settlement?
For me, no.
Okay. Just give me, I just need to drink a little bit. Okay. I think I have to speed up a little bit. And then I want to show you a completely different case and the open question, but I have no an answer for you probably from a operative perspective. Joanne, sorry, are you with us, Joanne? Joanne, are you with us?
Yes, I'm. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Sorry for asking. So now we can. I just want to show you a completely different approach in site planning. This is site planning, and the open question is whether smaller is easier. Yes, can be definitely yes from a pure practical perspective. Sorry. But not necessarily. So this is, I just want to show you a case study. It's a small emergency settlement that was designed, that has been, I have designed it in a way that he had to last. We knew that. The context was completely different. This is the settlement. As you can see, it's not very big. So the dimension definitely give us the opportunity to design it more carefully. This design was for after the tsunami in Sri Lanka, where most a large many fishermen and families along the shore, they have lost their houses completely destroyed by the tsunami. So the government decided to build basically new villages, new at the beginning were kind of emergency settlements, and then that eventually will become new villages more inland in a more kind of protected area. Apart that there was political issues over there. As you can see, that the layout is not agreed at all. It's definitely not agreed. And for example, then we'll go into a different slide. Actually, we can go right now into the different slide. This is the view that you have them from the satellite imagery. So the settlement is still existing, is doing good. I think there's someone putting something into the chat, correct?
Yes, Khaled, he said
Khaled
I
is
got
saying-
Okay, fine. So
he cannot hear us, probably.
He cannot
hear us.
I can hear nothing, Khaled. Khaled, but we can, Khaled, sorry. Sorry, I just send a message to anyone, but I'm wondering whether Khaled can now hear us.
Khaled left now. I know it's here. Should be there.
Okay, no problem.
Can't hear anything, George.
Okay. Maybe he will come back, but we have to carry on because it's already 10:30. So as you can see, the settlement is already existing. The location was very kind of nice, and I mean,
yeah, actually, it's so cute, you know.
Thank you, Omar. Thank you, Omar. So I mean, the design, the entire design. Why I can? Okay, no, I want to go back. So as you can see, the entire design of the settlement, the whole settlement was designed in a way to favor as much as possible resilience. I mean, resilience from the dwellers, from the inhabitants. As you can, I just want to make you notice that there is just one main road, while all the others are kind of minor roads, because we don't want big vehicles to go inside. The big vehicles stop here. In fact, there is a car park over here, so big vehicles can stop here, and then you proceed either walking or with the small tuk-tuk Bajaj vehicles. And that's it. There are public spaces in every kind of sector of this small settlement, and we have included a kind of central square with a school, some shops. I mean, to enhance the participation and the involvement of the community, creating an internal centralized space over here. This is the settlement. If I go closer, just to give you an insight, at least for this kind of drawing, there were many more. I mean, you see the drainage system has been designed, despite this is an architectonical design. Here, the school with the community center has been designed, which is the end of the main road to this path, to the porch. You pass through the building itself. So basically you enter this porch, you go out, you are in the square. We have maintained some small elevation elements here, some small hill over here to be incorporated into the square. There is a porch where you can enter over here. We have consciously maintained an existing trees over here, which is in the middle of the road, but leaving enough space for the vehicles and the small vehicles to move around. And also, I would like to notice that every single plot, they have the same dimension, but with a different shape. and this is a completely different story. I mean, the plots were assigned by a lottery, a kind of people were applying it, so they know by extracting this number in which of these plots they will have eventually assigned. We left some empty spaces for public facility. Here, particularly, there was a big well, and so you can see that the process of creating a settlement, which aims to create, to favor as much as possible resilience, it takes a bit of study. We had to understand the context, and then we have to incorporate any elements of the context in a design that try to favor this kind of synergies over here. I think this is it for the settlement. I will carry on unless you have any other questions over here. I might have some photos. I put some photos over here, guys. For example, this was the school. Yes, this was the school, which was the school, and the construction was still ongoing. So the school, and here there was the space for the community centers and the shops. And I wanted just to show you some photos, which are kind of more than 10 years later. This is still, we see part of the school over here on the left. This is the main entrance with the porch, and these are minor shops and public spaces. So after 10 years, still kind of fairly well maintained because the community cares about it. And as you can see, sorry guys, as you can see, for example, this is one of the shelter that eventually has been transformed in a real paradise. I mean, we consider this one, I mean, I consider one of my most successful design of a settlement I have ever made in my life. So and you see, I mean, the Sri Lanka environment is a tropical country, so it's easy for the trees to grow rapidly and in a very rich way. So I wish that every single settlement, even the emergency settlement, we put the chance at least that those can evolve in something really nice. Any comment on this, guys? Okay, no, I carry on. And then there is an issue that for me it's very, very important. So I have decided to dedicate a small part, the last 20 minutes of this presentation, which is the need for beauty. Then we can open a big chapter on this. I'm sure Joanne has a lot to say about this concept. Just control yourself for a while, then you can shoot. This is a photo of an IDP camps that eventually got kind of passed through a consolidation process, and the people didn't go back to the original region, so they settled basically here. And it was interesting because we were providing bricks to for the construction of the sheltering, in this case hollow blocks, but they initially started to build the fencing. So this is to say that which is the fence as a seeking for security and safety, or giving the impression that you are in a safe place, if it's not. But anyway, it's very important. So we had a lot of discussion with the people. Say, guys, we are giving you the bricks for the shelter, not for the walling. But the walling, external walling, fencing was a very important element. But still, this family, this household, they decided to make it nicer. We didn't provide the paints, but they painted their own door. They put these stones on top of the wall, and they painted the wall to make it look nicer. And by themselves, they did outside this. Yeah, this is to say the wall protection. So, yeah, by the way, I recall because I spoke with this guy, and he told me something. Of course, I seek for safety, but I also want to welcome the people, and that for me was a bang. It was a big bang. So the idea to have a safe place, but in the other hand, that can really welcome the people, the neighborhoods, the friends, and other members of the community. So this is a very important element. I like the care, despite this walk away is very basic. fight. This walkway now is unusable because there are the trees. But this guy decided to plant these trees in front of his house by his home, has painted this hole to make it nicer, and eventually these trees will grow. This is another settlement, for example, and without going too much details, as you can see, even for this settlement, there was a community participation involvement, because one of the basic need was to make this very gray settlement into something very nicer. So they started with painting the wall with some murales. And I was wondering, even by looking this photo, if you can quickly, what you will do to make it nicer. Is there any idea that you will, by just looking at this photo, what will you do to make it nicer? Any idea, guys? Pardon?
Install more tree.
I didn't get it, sorry.
Tree. Install more tree.
Put more trees. Excellent. I love it. I mean, I am a big fan of trees. So put trees whenever you can, guys.
Giorgio, maybe we can paint the water tanks.
Excellent. Excellent. Well done. Well done, Omer. I agree with you. I will do the same. I definitely will do the same, because it's so an obvious, evident element over here. And to have these water tanks painted will be very, very cool. I like it. I like it. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, that's fine. I think we can carry on. This is another, it's a murales, which has been done with the involvement of the community again. But the point for me, and the murales are okay, but it's a kind of makeup. But the person, the individual remain, a not good looking person, but will try to, to top up, but just making a makeup. So the beauty should not start from making some kind of correction arrangement in terms of colors that, for sure they are super, very nice and important, but we should be able to include the beauty basically in our design. But this is to say that for me, that beauty might be, of course, a relative concept that is applied and means differently in different social groups. However, it surely can be an element for planning, and as such, as a site planner, we should not ignore it. So when we have designed the settlement, for example, in that case in Sri Lanka, since Sri Lanka is such a beautiful country, every country is beautiful, but particularly in the Middle East, we are forgetting this. And so we had the idea to design a settlement which was a good looking settlement. Also because if you live in a good looking environment, in a nice environment, the joy of life, particularly for people in need, is greatly and enormously improved. I don't know whether I managed to make myself clear. If you have anything to ask, you are super welcome, guys.
Giorgio?
Yes.
I think that's very important what you're saying about beautification of your site, but we have not to make the mistakes that this comes from us, from the site planner, but the idea should come from the IDP or the refugee. It means it's very important to involve local artists and local people to understand what means beauty for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Any improvement should pass through the involvement of the community. If it's related to beauty or related to practical infrastructures, involve the community. That's a must. Joanne, you're silent. How come?
I'm on the call, Giorgio. Sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry. No, okay, sorry. So I carry on, guys. I carry on. And yes, that's the very last sentence. And don't think that painting a wall is enough. Take in consideration the issue of beauty, if you can, if the situation somehow allow you since the very beginning. And then I would like to comment with you if this child-friendly space express also beauty or solely satisfy its own function. This is the child-friendly space. Of course, it's an early stage of the life of this settlement, of this emergency settlement. There were enough money, so it was not me in this case, but so they decided to invest quite a lot of money, which is good for a child-friendly space, and which I totally agree and I endorse. But I'm starting to wonder whether the way this child-friendly space has been done was actually the best way. Since we are running out of time, I will just conclude about these slides, then I will capture your comments. So regarding the settlement design logic was agreed, and the child-friendly space too. So the concept which has been, I don't know whether you can see the pointer of my mouse, but the concept of which was applied for this settlement, which is a simple grid, is it's equal to the child-friendly space. As you can see, we have two axes, a sort of cross, which identify two precisely equal rectangular spaces. So, of course, this place can turn into a real and nice place. But if, of course, if it's maintained properly, there is a community involvement, participation. They don't spoil it over the time. They keep maintenance of the infrastructure. They enable the trees to grow, so they take care of the trees. But even the designing of the child-friendly space is an occasion to break some, consuetudinary rules, like in this case the grids, but which has not been taken in this specific case. So basically, the people live in a grid frame and environment, and they again move in a grid frame and environment. And just a side consideration regarding this settlement over here, and as you can see, this settlement was fairly isolated from any surroundings. As you can see here, basically is in the middle of nowhere. So there was the need to balance the fact that the dwellers even here have limited chance to interact with the surrounding, at least walking. And so this forced, the approach over here to increase the efforts and the investment for these kind of resources. Is it good? Does it have side effects? I think so, but still it's important to be conscious of all the process that we put when we design these kind of camps. And site planners, they have a central role. So you come out, you can raise the issues when it comes to camp management. What do we do? How do we improve this settlement? So this is definitely very important. I will continue. I just want to quote, for example, this is an health center which has been designed by an organization focused on health. So making a kind of pleasant communal facilities and spaces improve considerably the overall quality of an emergency settlement. Even this one is an IDP camp. This is to say that, for example, very often we see health centers or public infrastructure which are kind of not good looking, to be honest. It means that we are not putting, even as a site planner, we might have a say, guys, can you take a little bit, can you make it a little bit nicer? Because what I strongly believe that beauty is dignity. If we want to provide dignity, as someone mentioned dignity at the beginning of this session, and I totally agree, we have to put a little bit of effort on this. I truly appreciate the design of this settlement. As you can see inside, there are simple basic containers which has been kind of hide behind this grid of wood, very simple one. I didn't even know what is wood because it was red colored. And here you see the cover is an ironing, sorry. It's a very kind of industrial roof, but still, outside having the care of the garden and giving the chance to plants to grow. Even for the people accessing this health center, it's such a big improvement for everyday life. So I think it's definitely very, very important. And basically, I would say that's it. beauty, I think, can be designed everywhere. And I just want to give you, to provide an example, an experience which was done in Thailand, that for me, it's absolutely very important. We can learn a lot from it, from a real spatial perspective. Okay, from a real spatial perspective. So this is a slum, it's an informal settlement in Thailand. Basically, designers, and together with the community, they have created, they have created football playground, even if the available space was not rectangular. So this is a design. This is a football playground, but with L-shaped. You see, within this settlement have been created this football playground just by adapting the shape with the context. So they move from this condition of an abandoned place to this condition of a planned space. You see, sorry, I need to drink a little bit because otherwise I will start coughing for hours. So this is to say that even a shape which is kind of weird like this one, they have managed to create a football playground. So in regard to this, I want to see with you a very short video. I just want to be sure that you can hear my audio. I will stop sharing 1 second and I will share again my screen to be sure that the sound of my computer is included. Okay, guys,
Okay.
stay put. Okay, then share. No, I did it once already, but I'm not sure I'm capable to do that. Joanne, do you know how to do it?
Yeah, go into shared screen and look at the bottom left-hand corner and the tick thing. Remember?
Yes.
Is it ticked or not? Share computer audio. Click on shared screen. Hang on a minute, let me do it. Oh, I can't. Go into share screen, and as the screen comes up with all the screens.
Okay.
Bottom left-hand corner.
Share computer sound. Okay. And optimize screen sharing for video clip. I click also on that. Shall I click on optimize screen sharing for video clip?
Why not?
Yeah, I will do it. Let's hope. Okay, now, guys, can you see again my computer screen?
Yes, for
Okay.
me, yes.
Okay, just give me 1 second to the computer just to launch it. Okay, I will. Okay, do you see it?
Yeah, but it's not clear. Actually, I don't know if that's from my connection.
Okay.
No, the same. Something for me. It is not.
It's not that clear, but it might be okay once you start playing.
Okay,
or it might be because
try.
you've expanded it to the full screen.
Okay, maybe I reduce it because my screen is very big. Is it better now?
It's okay. It's just, you can see it.
Okay, then, but you have the link, you can have a look at together, but now we can just have a look at together.
โดยธรรมชาติวัยรุ่นเนี่ยเขามีความสนใจอยากจะออกมาแสดงหรือออกมาใช้ความสามารถของเขาแต่ว่าเวลาที่เขาไม่มีพื้นที่แบบนี้เนี่ยสิ่งที่เราจะเห็นเลยเขาจะกลับมาอยู่กับตัวเองและอาจจะเริ่มอยู่กับอะไรที่เขาสนใจเฉพาะมากๆซึ่งมีโอกาสที่จะมีปัญหาตามมาได้
ก็มันมีหลายกลุ่มอะพี่กลุ่มแบบไปแว้นมั่งไปมั่วสุมกันมั่งอะพี่
วัยรุ่นในชุมชนแออัดก็ต้องการพื้นที่ที่จะแสดงออกอย่างสร้างสรรค์เหมือนวัยรุ่นทุกๆคนแต่พื้นที่ที่เขาอยู่อาศัยกลับไม่เอื้ออำนวยไม่มีเชฟไม่มีรูปทรง
ไปใส่ในพื้นที่ที่ทุกคนมองข้ามเราก็จะได้พื้นที่ใช้สอยใหม่ๆที่มีประโยชน์กับชุมชนแล้ว
ก็เป็นครั้งแรกที่เคยเจอแบบสนามแบบนี้ตอนแรกผมก็นึกว่าเฮ้ยมันจะเล่นได้ไงวะแบบสนามมันมีบิดเบี้ยวอย่างเงี้ยพอได้เล่นมันแบบรู้สึกแปลกแบบมันได้เล่นแบบหลายมุมหลายที่อะไรเงี้ย
ผมชอบแบบพวกเพื่อนผมก็ชอบกันทุกคนเลยครับ
อยู่แฟลตเดียวกันเราไม่เคยเจอกันเลยแล้วก็เลยมาเจอกันที่สนาม
เพราะว่าเด็กคือผู้ใหญ่ในวันข้างหน้าการที่ว่ามีสนามให้เขาออกกำลังกายมันจะลดปัญหาไปได้เยอะครับพ่อแม่เขาก็ลดความเป็นห่วง
ไม่ใช่แค่เรื่องของเด็กและเยาวชนนะคะมันจะส่งผลต่อผู้คนที่อยู่โดยรอบพื้นที่เล็กๆที่ถูกออกแบบนี้ด้วยค่ะ
ถ้าเราให้ความสำคัญกับพื้นที่ที่ไร้ประโยชน์พื้นที่ในชีวิตของทุกคนก็จะไม่มีคำว่าเปล่าประโยชน์
Okay, okie dokie. I hope you enjoyed this one. And just to, conclude my presentation, I would like to end with very important sentence, but I strongly believe in it. For me, site planning, from what I have learned, site planning is giving importance to the spaces in every area of people in need life. So it's a combination between our capacity to plan the space at the services of these people. So I would say this is it. Thank you. The presentation for today is over. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comment, just shoot. I saw that someone can't read the subtitles, but you have the link in the PowerPoint presentation, so I recommend you all have a look on the video.
Yeah, thank you, Giorgio. The beauty, I think, is really important because we are building a small community, so we have to think about the beauty of this community.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Thanks. Okay, guys.
And I think also, you see it in lots of places where people are living in, awful conditions. So you look at kind of the Palestinian territories, and people find ways of individual expression and making things their own, and making statements, whether that be through art or building or what they do. So I think just because something's practical doesn't necessarily mean just because something's practical in an emergency doesn't necessarily mean it just has to be ugly all the time. And people will find ways of giving personal expression to everything in their own unique way, really, which is, I think, what you were showing. I didn't hear all of it, but I saw the pictures.
Excellent. Thanks. Okay, guys, if you are okay, if you have no questions, I think we can consider this session over.
Thank you, Giorgio.
Thank you, Giorgio.
Okay, thank you, guys.
For
See you next.